You can now support Ghost Maps on Patreon. Simply look for We Are Hantu or click the link in the description. Inspired by an account from Anisar. Ghost Maps. Entry 134, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It's been a difficult time for me recently. With my new gift, an opened third eye, I find myself no longer just speaking with people who have stories to share. Instead, I'm also speaking with the spirits and entities of those people's stories. Some of these entities have hinted that I might not be well. I've been to my doctor, and even though she's still waiting for some of the results, she says I seem fine. Could have quit smoking a whole lot earlier if you ask me, she said, with a laugh. But otherwise, you're about as fit as anyone your age. So, were the entities lying to me? Or can they see something that my doctor hasn't caught yet? These questions must be weighing heavily on my mind, because I don't notice that tonight's interviewee has already arrived. Kelly shakes my hand and greets me warmly before taking a seat across from me. She's wearing sensible but stylish office wear. Even with flats, she's a whole head taller than me. Kelly's a patent lawyer, which she explains with a quiet chuckle is one of the less stressed kinds of lawyers. Despite carrying herself confidently, though, I can't help but notice that she still speaks rather softly. She smiles when I mention this. I grew up with a large, loud, extended family, she says. You either stood out or kept to yourself. I chose the latter. The drink stall auntie comes by at that moment and takes our order. A Milo for her, a yin yang for myself. As the auntie fetches our drinks, Kelly continues telling me about this loud family of hers. Their favorite annual event, she says, is a trip up to Kuala Lumpur to visit their Uncle Peter. She doesn't join them anymore, nor do any of her cousins. It's become more of a chance for my dad to catch up with his siblings, she says. But back when this tradition first started, it was the most important day in her extended family's calendar. It was while on the first of these trips, when she was 15, that she experienced her encounter. And it was staying quiet that probably saved me, she says, her voice dropping down to a whisper. I take this as my cue. As our drinks arrive, I fish my recorder out from my bag and ask her to start from the beginning. It was the June holidays in 2010. Kelly's father and her uncle Richard had rented 2 minibuses. The plan was to drive their families and Kelly's auntie June's family up to Uncle Peter's house in KL. 3 families, each with at least 2 children, packed into 2 minibuses. It was absolute chaos, Kelly says, rolling her eyes, though with just a hint of a smirk. The kids, who didn't have their heads in a book or a video game like Kelly, were screaming at each other and cackling. The adults were no better, laughing boisterously and cracking terrible jokes that only made the kids cackle even louder. After 10 hours, 3 pit stops and 1 lunch break though, they finally made it to Uncle Peter's by 8 p.m. Peter's family his wife, and 3 kids came out to welcome his clan and show everyone to their rooms. His home was a 3-story house, and his Singaporean relatives all oohed and ahed. Eventually, Uncle Peter showed Kelly, her younger brother, and some of her cousins to where they would be sleeping. It was a spacious room on the 2nd floor, she says. There was actually nothing terribly creepy about it. It was what was opposite the room that made Kelly uneasy. A small washroom with dim lights. Its wooden door creaked loudly every time someone opened or closed it. So loudly that everyone on the 2nd floor could hear it. I immediately felt like someone was watching us from within it, Kelly says. That unease stayed with Kelly for the first 3 days of a holiday, but was never at the front of her thoughts. Her days were too packed with shopping and eating. Oh my God, so much eating, she says, smiling. Even when they weren't out and about, Uncle Peter's house was bustling with activity, until it was time for bed. I would go to the washroom on the 1st floor to brush my teeth, she says. No matter what, I wouldn't ever use the one on the 2nd floor. It would always take her a while to even shut her eyes, but eventually her sleepiness overpowered her fear. By the 4th day, she started to feel like she might have been a bit too sensitive. Nothing had happened. No monsters, ghosts, or creatures came rushing out from the washroom to eat her. Plus, she was 15 years old. If her younger cousins weren't freaked out by the creepy washroom, why should she be? No, nothing happened. Not yet. Anyway. It was around 1 in the morning on their 4th night when Kelly woke up to a very familiar sound. The creak of the wooden door. But this time it was more than just loud. It was deafening. The noise seemed to only affect her though. She looked around and her brother and her cousins all seemed to be sleeping soundly. From where Kelly slept, she could tilt her head slightly to see the washroom door. Bathed in the moonlight from a nearby window, the door was opening slowly. No one, however, had stepped out. The washroom's dim lights weren't switched on. There was no one there. Kelly reasoned that it was probably the wind, but just as slowly as it opened, the door started to shut again. And then it opened again. The door did this 4 times, almost like it was waving to Kelly. I was too scared to look away, she says. Too scared that whatever was in there would catch me unaware. Finally, the door stopped moving. And from seemingly deep within what Kelly was now not so certain was just a small washroom. 2 red eyes glared directly at her. The eyes, in whatever they belonged to, started to move out and towards Kelly's bedroom. As this thing left the gloom of the washroom, though, it didn't take on any form that she could comprehend. It was a figure made of grey smoke, with those eyes held firm where its head was supposed to be. Two unblinking red dots. Kelly did the only thing she could think to do. She hid herself under her blanket and just muttered, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," over and over. "I know it's something a child would do," she says. But in that moment, I felt as helpless as one. Kelly didn't know how, but she could feel the figure getting closer. She went silent. Closer and closer. She remained absolutely quiet and still, her thoughts focused on prayers she hadn't said since she was still a kid. Closer. She could feel it. Entering the room, its red eyes surveying all the sleeping children. Would she have to stop it if it tried to attack her cousins or her brother, or even her parents in one of the other rooms? Could she? Closer, until suddenly it was gone. It took her a minute to climb out from under the blanket. She knew it was gone, but she doubted those instincts. Finally, though, she peeked out to see that it really had vanished. It was another hour before Kelly fell asleep, her body just giving into slumber. When morning came, she was still rattled, but she knew that she couldn't keep this to herself. "I told everyone right there at breakfast," she says. Her family seemed shocked at first, though she's sure that was at least partially because the quiet one was so animated. When she was done relating her encounter, her mother stood up and told Kelly that she was just imagining things. Kelly, however, could hear the embarrassment in her voice and the nervous way her mother laughed a little too loudly. But then Auntie June spoke up. "I've been feeling something off about this place too, Peter," she said, turning to the adults. Uncle Richard insisted that they continue this conversation away from the kids, many of whom were younger than Kelly. Sure enough, her cousin started asking her about what she saw, but she didn't feel like talking about it anymore. "I think the exhaustion of everything that happened finally hit me," she says. She just wanted to get out of there. That afternoon, the adults insisted that everyone head out for more shopping and food. Kelly and the older cousins could see what they were doing, trying to get everyone to forget about what had happened. She didn't want to go. She knew she was the quiet one, but that didn't give them an excuse to just brush aside her encounter. Her mother, however, said to her in a conspiratorial whisper, "I'm sorry, darling, but Uncle Peter needs the house empty." Not a hint of the earlier embarrassment in her tone. So Kelly decided to follow the rest. When the family returned that evening, the atmosphere of the house felt different. Kelly felt lighter, and Auntie June seemed more relaxed. "I don't know what Uncle Peter did," Kelly says, "but I could sense that thing was gone." The rest of the holiday, all 2 days of it, was actually pretty fun, as was every visit after. They were filled with food and shopping, of course, but also many loud nights gathered together in Uncle Peter's living room. I still mostly kept to myself, Kelly says. But I really treasured being surrounded by all that family. As she finishes her drink and gets up to leave, I thank her for her story. I decide then that whatever Uncle Peter did, it must have been pretty thorough, and choose to save myself a trip to KL. I finish my own drink and head home instead. After all, I feel a bit of a headache coming on. If you want to discover more of Southeast Asia's other side, subscribe now and follow us on social media. You can also be one of our supporters on Patreon. Look for We Are Hantu or click the links in the description. Ghost Maps is a Hantu production created by Kyle Ong and Wayne Ray, with art direction by Jolene Lim, and recorded on Audio Technica mics.